All right, now that you have done that formative section, we're going to look at how we develop a contingency plan. So, step number one, we have to plan the risk management um, process within our businesses. So, we have a process of planning, making sure that there is a team that knows the process and that we go through the specific process. So, we have a plan. Then we go through all the business processes and the different departments and the different activities, and we identify the risks that could possibly happen within our business. Now, obviously, we can't be aware of every risk in every department, and that's why it's so good to get departments together to talk, to brainstorm, to questionnaire, so that we can work out what kind of risks are in the business. Then we take all those risks and we need to look at the probability of it actually happening. Now, as we said, earthquakes don't really happen in South Africa. So, should we factor earthquakes in? Probably not. But load shedding, oh goodness, yeah, that happens very, very often. So, we have to factor that in. So, we look at the different probabilities. Then, based on the probabilities as well as the severity, we create what is known as a response plan. So, if something negative happens, what is the things that we have put in place that's going to minimize the negative impact? So, we have a response plan. And then we also need to make sure that we monitor and control the risk. So when we see that certain risks are maybe getting out of control, maybe it's time to transfer it or to mitigate or put a process in place. So we have to constantly monitor the risks that we have identified to make sure that the business area that we're working with is protected from the negative impact of those risks. So those are the 5 steps. So you can see there, uh, in this way, you list every business process in a department. Then you list the tasks for every business process. Then for every step, you list a dependency. So remember, we are dependent on certain infrastructural elements. So things like the computer, like the fiber line, like electricity, like the printer, like paper, like materials. There are certain things that we rely on. And if they are not in place, then obviously it creates problems in our business. Then we need to look at the likelihood of each dependency failing. So, what is the likelihood of the electricity failing? Well, in South Africa, it's quite high. But if you bought a high end computer, well, the chance of it failing is very low. So, you can sort of look at all these different elements and then you rate it according to a scale. Now, the scale these guys are using is high, medium, and low. Okay, and then if you assume that every dependency fails, what is the backup plan? What is the contingency plan? So we need to already have in our mind what we do when something goes wrong. So if a machine breaks down, is there a second machine that we can use? If the computer system goes, is there a manual system? So we need to be constantly looking at contingencies. Now, once we understand the contingencies, the backup plan, we need to make sure that everyone knows about the backup plan because you don't want a crisis and people go, what on earth do we do now? So we need to make sure that everyone is already informed about those contingency plans. So over there, you will see that there is internal reporting. So you need to let people inside of the business know, especially those who are the board of directors. Now, remember, they carry the risk of the whole business. So if they don't know what the risks are, then it's going to be very difficult for them to actually be liable for controlling those risks. So you need to report upwards to the board of directors, downwards, and into each department where the risks might be aware. So you'll see the board of directors, the different business units, and individuals. So within the individual scope of works, they need to know when this happens, what is my contingency? If I see that there's a red flag, what is my next step? So all of these things have to be communicated. But it also needs to be communicated externally. So can you imagine your customer is waiting on something and they heard that there is a truckers strike. And so you need to say, if there is a truckers strike, this is what we've got in plan. We are going to be using aeroplanes to fly it to you, or we are putting things on ships, or we have insured against it. so that everyone knows what is going to be happening if something bad happens within the business. And especially in South Africa, where things are quite volatile, we need to make sure that we are looking after those risks and we are letting our stakeholders know exactly what we're going to do about it. And you'll see that there should be formal reporting. So it's not just, don't stress, it's going to be okay. We actually really need to put it in writing, and we need everyone to be aware of it so that if it happens and they come after us for maybe financial liability, that we can actually say, listen, we're not going to take that because we've already notified you of how we're going to do it. Okay, then you also remember that you need to distribute and store the contingency plans. So if there's a flood, it's no use having all your contingency plans in the basement of the office because that's flooded out. So we need to keep it in a space where it's going to be safe and that everyone knows where it is, and that if something happens, everyone is aware of where it is. So where there's hard drives, internet, it needs to be protected. If it's physical copies, have a very secure place where you're going to keep it so that you know that if something goes wrong, it's quite easy to get to. All right, now that you know these things, I'm going to take you to Summative Assessment 4.3. So the first question, it says, referring back to your risk scenario regarding production. And I think the two things that we looked at was material shortage, and the second thing was breakdown of machinery. So let's take a look at that. So business process. So let's say the business process that you're looking at is completion of portfolios. Okay, so that's the business process. What tasks need to be had? Okay, well, we need to receive the portfolios. Then we need to fill in the portfolios. Then we need to get the portfolios signed. Once we've got the portfolios signed, they need to go to the assessors. Those are the tasks. What are they dependent on? Okay, well, um, they're dependent on, so let's say we receive the portfolios. What are the dependencies? Okay, that the facilitator gives out the work or that it is stored securely. Then the likelihood of failure, well, if I'm your facilitator, there's no chance of failure, so very, very low. But for other people, it might be quite high. Then the contingency action. So if I don't give you your work, then maybe the contingency action is that I need to send it to you on email. In that way, you can never lose your work. Okay, so maybe also signatures from managers, dependency that your managers are available. Likelihood of failure, well, if your managers are working remotely, there's a high chance of failure. What is the contingency plan? Maybe we need to nominate another person that's going to sign off your portfolio. So you take a look at the business process, what tasks need to be done, what dependencies does each task have, what is the chance of failure, and then tell me what contingency you can put in place. Then describe internal risk reporting and how it can be communicated. And question 3, describe external risk reporting and how it can be communicated. Best thing to do is go up to these 2 pages. So you'll see it starts on page 38 with the internal reporting. So just go and summarize that part. And then external reporting starts on the bottom of page 39, and then summarize that and then put in question 3. Then explain how you would distribute and store your contingency plan in accordance with the organization's risk management procedures. So over here, what I want you guys to do is to say, okay, how does our business distribute and store contingency plans? So when there is risk or issues that you know that you're going to have to deal with, how do you deal with them? Well, we put certain plans in the filing cabinet. We store everything in online on a cloud. We make backups every 3 days. So tell me how you make sure that those contingency plans that are crucial to the running of your business, where are they stored? How are they kept? How are they distributed? How are they communicated? You tell me what you do in your business. So that is question number 4. All right, then, once you have explained question number 1 to yourself, I want you to find a teammate and then explain it to them. Okay, so was the contingency plan explained in a clear and concise manner? So please tell me how you can do that. Okay, and that you did that for a team member. And how will the contingency plan be distributed and stored? Well, again, you need to tell your team member how you would store and distribute this contingency plan. Then your teammate is going to put their name and sign. You put your name, you sign, and then you date. All right. So that is for internal and external reporting, as well as storing and distributing contingency plans and how important contingency plans are in risk management.